You're live.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the latest special board meeting of the Municipal Review Committee. I'm Karen Fassel, president of the board. And today the board will be going into executive session and deliberating a possible extension of an agreement with Revere Capital Advisors. Today, the 26th is the last date of their period of exclusivity. So we have a proposal before us that we'll be contemplating and deliberating. We'll be coming out of executive session and possibly taking up action as a result to determine whether we will extend that and on what terms that would be. We're anticipating the executive session to last likely at least 2 hours. And as I said, we'll be coming back into public session. We'll be providing an update to folks and possibly taking action other than action to just adjourn. So do we have any changes to the agenda that was published? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session. Does anybody have that language? All right, John, could you suggest language for us that somebody might be able to?
A suggested motion may be to move that the board go into executive session pursuant to 105(6)(e) to consult with legal counsel regarding contractual duties and obligations.
I would correct that to say 405 instead of 105.
I meant to say 405. Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Hold on a second. All right. Steve?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So again, we will be going into executive session. We anticipate it will probably last at least 2 hours. We'll be coming back out of executive session, providing an update for folks listening and possibly taking up action, voting action as a board to consider extension of terms. All right. With that, Amy, you can take us into executive session, please.
All set.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. We are back in public session. We concluded our executive session discussing proposed terms for an extension of an exclusivity agreement with Revere Capital Advisors. And I'm pleased to say that the board is satisfied with the terms as proposed. We're still working out some of the final specific language, but not the fundamental terms that we feel are agreeable. So we have a proposal that would bring us to a close with Revere Capital Advisors in November. And assuming all of these conditions can be met. And from there, reopening of the facility. So our legal counsel, John Pottle, is going to go over the core elements of the proposal and the terms that would bring us to that financial close, hopefully in November, and what the board would be considering in its vote this morning. So, John.
Thanks. I'll give a summary overview. Of course, I'm sure people fully appreciate the details of which these are still ongoing discussion negotiations. So there's still some level of confidentiality that has to be maintained. But from a summary of the proposed terms to continue forward, essentially, and this is all focused on recapitalization of the plant, as Karen mentioned, to help facilitate a reopening. So in essence, what that would involve is Revere would become an owner of Municipal Waste Solutions along with MRC. Currently, MRC is the only owner of Municipal Waste Solutions as part of recapitalizing the plant, where Revere would be bringing forth private sector funds. In exchange for that, they would take an ownership stake in the company, Municipal Waste Solutions. It would be expected that MRC would retain a minority interest in the ownership. As Karen mentioned, the target closing is going to be in November of 2022. As said, it really is focused on recapitalization of the plant to marshal forward the necessary funds to carry through as part of reopening. That's focused on all the things that you would expect, bringing in crews, professional staff, the carrying cost of the facility, working to get it up and running again to start taking solid waste. The other aspect or essence of the transaction would be MRC would continue to be, as it always has been, the landlord to the facility. What would be new is MRC would have a services agreement with Municipal Waste Solutions to do many of the functions that it's able to do and has been doing to a large degree during the suspensive operation. So there'd be a services agreement with MRC where MRC would receive some additional compensation for that. Just to reflect the new ownership as it stands today, but as well as the recapitalization, there's going to necessarily be amendments to both the site lease, which remain in place as mentioned, and the master waste supply agreement. A lot of those will be removing, for example, legacy provisions, changing party names, but also updating it to reflect the recapitalization and restructuring effort. Part of that's going to include expected to have an extension of the site lease and extension of the master waste supply agreement to align with the schedule of reopening. That's not a lot dissimilar from what we have looked at before as part of reopening as prior efforts earlier on in the process. So that's nothing necessarily new. And one key thing that we've always focused on is keeping the tip fee as is in the master waste supply agreement, maintaining that calculation of the tip fee. And also we've been looking at ensuring that Municipal Waste Solutions is part of this transaction. As you know, there's certain lien holder agreements that MRC conducted to help facilitate acquisition out of the receivership. So those would be addressed as well as part of this recapitalization transaction. And of course, the big focus will be getting a new operator in and to effectuate a reopening, both what we call the front end and the back end, and also focusing on the gas portion. So again, it's marshaling forth the funds as part of this recapitalization, bringing in the expertise for operator and the technical aspect to make sure that happens. That's what's all contemplated as the essential framework of this recapitalization transaction.
Thanks, John. That was a great summary. I think from MRC's perspective, there are a number of benefits to this. One of which is that upon the close, the sale of the interest shares in Municipal Waste Solutions would provide some income to MRC in exchange for Revere taking majority ownership. And the management fee arrangement that John mentioned will go a long way over the course of the 15-year term to recoup much of the funds that the MRC members have put into the facility. And I believe, John, you mentioned that MRC would continue to receive lease payments as landlord, which again is another income stream for MRC members. So there are a number of significant benefits with this arrangement. And we're very excited that that Revere is continuing to move forward and continuing to show very dedicated interest in this project. So we're feeling very encouraged by this extension, And we anticipate that we'll be sending out communications to members shortly. One of the things, I'm not sure, John, if you mentioned, but some of these terms like the amendment to the master waste supply agreement, the amendment to the site lease, the extension of those terms would be to restart the clock, the 15-year clock again, with the from the start of the conclusion of the transaction. And that is considered a fundamental matter. And so we've been through this process before with our members, where we'll be sending out communications that details the elements of the transaction, in particular the ones that, in accordance with MRC bylaws, allow members to call a special meeting to vote on those issues if they so desire. It doesn't require a vote by membership, but they can if they feel so compelled to do that. So we'll be sending out notice about that. And it was the extension of those terms, the fact that we're selling interest shares that exceed $100,000 worth of value. And those are the primary issues that trigger the fundamental matters. We are also anticipating a meeting with members that we'll be holding in the first couple of weeks of October. You'll be getting information about that. And the goal with that is to hold a meeting after members receive the fundamental matters notice, so that they have an opportunity to learn more about it, to ask questions, provide comments and feedback and those sorts of things. So I think that pretty well covers it. Mike, do you have any other comments and anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm happy where we are today with our negotiations. I feel the big part of the value here is, the expertise that Revere is willing to bring in to get this equipment going again, the amount of capital that they're willing to put into the facility. And then, like you had said, Karen, the ongoing management fee the MRC will receive to recoup these funds. So I think we're in a good place today compared to where we were some time ago. And I just look forward to moving forward and getting this deal done.
Anybody else have any other comments? Sophie, would you like to make a comment or make a motion?
Hearing no comments, I thought I would offer to make a motion.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right. So stand by. I make a motion that we resolve that the MRC and MWS are hereby authorized to, 1, enter into a term sheet, definitive agreements, and all such other agreements as are contemplated hereby or thereby to effect the recapitalization transaction with implementation of transactions contemplated in the recapitalization transaction, subject to the fundamental matters or changes provision pursuant to MRC bylaws. 2, execute and deliver such amendments to the site lease and master waste supply agreement, subject to prior notice and opportunity for comment to MRC members as required in those agreements. 3, to execute and deliver such agreements and other documents as the signing officer may deem necessary or appropriate in order to fully affect the transactions contemplated by the recapitalization transaction. All the foregoing be collectively referred to herein as transaction documents. In each case, on substantially the terms presented at this meeting, and be it further resolved that each of the president, vice president, and treasurer of the MRC acting singly hereby is authorized to execute and deliver each of the transaction documents on behalf of the MRC on such terms and conditions as he or she may approve, his or her signature thereon to constitute conclusive evidence of such approval, and to take all such further actions as he or she may deem necessary or appropriate in order to implement these resolutions and the transaction contemplated hereby. And be it further resolved that the president, as an authorized manager of MWS, is hereby authorized to execute and deliver each of the transaction documents on behalf of MWS on such terms and conditions as he or she may approve, his or her signature thereon to constitute conclusive evidence of such approval, and to take all such further actions as he or she may deem necessary or appropriate in order to implement these resolutions and transactions contemplated hereby.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a resolution that's been made. It's been seconded. Any comments from anyone? All right, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Aaron.
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Sophie,
Yes.
Dana,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So with that, we're unanimously resolved to move forward with this transaction with the goal of closing finally on the transaction on or before November 10th. I'm not sure, John, did you mention the 8 to 10 months in
I did.
talking about the
Karen.
stages? So one of the things that everybody's always interested in knowing when waste would be flowing back into the plant. One of the provisions in the terms that we're agreeing to calls for the completion of stage 1 and stage 2 improvements. And those are the improvements to the front end and to the back end, the wet end, to be completed within 8 to 10 months. So the goal, according to these terms, would still be to have waste going back into that plant in the second half of 2023, which I think is great news and fantastic news for our members and for the plant itself. So we, again, will be sending out information to members with regard to the fundamental matters notice within the next week, we anticipate, and constant contact, more high level information within the next day or two. So with that, does anybody else have any other comments? That's it. All right. Well, we're very excited about the prospects for this partnership, and thank you very much for participating. And please call us if you have any questions, and we'll be providing more communications and updates as the work progresses. So I would entertain a motion now to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. We'll consider it approved and moved. So thank you all very much. You guys have a good afternoon.
Excellent.
Good work,
Hey,
Mike, John. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Tony,
you.
can you give me a call?
Good day.
Good work, guys. Mike and John.